Hey? Yeah, I'm fine.
What the hell's going on?
I'm hurt, man. Adam's gay. There's nothing wrong with him. The same guy, right?
This is all your fault.
No, it's fine, guys. I'll take the fall on this one. I'm too good looking.
Believe me, I wanted to tell you before. I didn't want things to be weird between us.
Can someone just say something, please?
So, you really like the cock, huh?
I guess I never met a real-life gay dude before, you know? Went to high school with a couple of guys that used to make out, but that was just for weed.
My head can't stop spinning, so I turn the radio on.
Your friend just came out of the closet. You have any idea how hard that is?
Adam, are you good?
I just want someone.
Put yourself out there.
Tony would have hated this place. I don't even know why we broke up. It was this big.
Guys, he's not happy. I don't think he's been happy for a while. He needs this, boys. He needs us.
How long have you known?
I don't know. I just knew that I felt different.
I think I met someone. At some point, we had eye contact for 2 seconds.
You want to do 2 seconds?
2 seconds.
Here we go.
1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi.
And there's always, Grindr too.
That's only if you want to try to have butt sex 5 minutes from now.
How do you know what Grindr is?
How do you know what Grindr is?
Hi, everyone.
Hello, welcome. This is Price Support Services. I am Ray Castillo and CEO founder of Price Support Services.
I'm Xavier, Director of Operations. And today we have a very, very awesome and amazing topic for you guys. We are actually reviewing and discussing Fourth Man Out. And what makes it so exciting is that we actually have two of the producers of the movie with us.
Yay!
And introduce them, right?
Absolutely. We have Lauren Avinoam. And Lauren, can you say hello?
Hello.
And we have Jet Mellick with us as well. Say hello.
Hi there. Thanks for having us.
Yay! So this comes to a shock and as a surprise to all of us. We have been talking about, what can we do throughout this whole pandemic situation as far as us being locked in the houses? What can we do as an organization? So we decided to do kind of like a movie and then have a discussion. So Fourth Man Out happened to be the first one that we kind of took on because we recently actually had a support group in which we talked about coming out. This movie just definitely resonated with us. And we're so excited that the producers of this movie actually reached out to us and we're like, oh my God, yes.
We're actually still starstruck.
Yes, yes. So thank you for being with us today. And we wanted to, obviously, we're going to have some discussion about the movie today. Some, scenes that kind of, I kind of felt that it was, good to talk about. If we do have some questions coming up, then we'll ask those questions. But we do also have some questions for you guys. But before we do all that, I just want to let you guys introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your background, what you're doing, and a little bit about this movie, if you guys don't mind.
Sure. Yes. I'm Jed Mellick, one of the producers on Fourth Man Out. I guess my background is I'm originally from the East Coast, up in Connecticut. Moved out to LA 10 years ago, and I was actually working as an assistant at a production company, management and production company, when I first read the script for this. And that kind of, I didn't know what to do with it at the time because I was so new to LA and the business. And then it was about a year later that I kind of had my wits about me and started figuring out how to put it together, which led to me eventually meeting Lauren, and who obviously we produced the movie together, and then we partnered up officially as producing partners after the movie since it went so well. And so, yeah, we're still out here. We've produced another movie and are working on a bunch more projects. So I'll let Lauren go.
Great.
It's so funny we're not together because we're in touch all the time. Not together.
We gotta make sure we tell everybody you guys are 6 feet apart. No.
Yeah. So I'm from Canada originally, from Toronto, and my background before I was producing was in kind of PR, film festival PR, and so that kind of led me on a journey to meet the director of the film, Andy Nachman, at a great film festival in Palm Springs Short Fest. He was there with a beautiful short film, and we became friends, and then I met Jed through him, and here we are. And we're still, Fourth Man Out is, it's just a project we're so passionate about. We love the actors. The experience of making it was so positive. So we're happy to keep, doing things like this and getting the word out because, it's a very important project, we think, to share with people. And I think still resonates and still very funny, which is good. So here we are. Thank you for having us.
That's awesome. Thank you guys for being here. And Jed, I understand that you have a background in mental health.
Yeah, when I was living in New York, I actually, before I realized I wanted to work in film, I got a master's degree to be a mental health counselor, which I definitely have benefited from that since moving out to LA and working in film. I didn't work in it for too long. I ended up kind of after that making the decision to move out here and pursue a life in entertainment, I guess. But that's something that I've always been fascinated by and find really interesting and really important for people and for society to have. And it's a useful knowledge to have when dealing with people just in work and every day as well. So I've definitely benefited from the degree, even though I didn't, I'm not officially.
I think it helps us out in every sense, not only dealing with people, but within also our own family structure inside of the house. It definitely works.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, going into it about the movie, right? We wanted to start by just asking both of you what really inspired you, right? We know that Jed, you got this script in your hands, right? And I think also from our conversation earlier with Lauren yesterday, she was telling us that it was not really meant to happen, but it kind of happened. Can you just tell us a little bit about what happened? How did you get this script in your hands?
It was a bizarre thing. I was actually when I first read it, I wasn't even an assistant. I was an intern, and I was covering a desk, which means that there was an assistant who was leaving the desk. I was just sitting at it, and she received an email with the script. She had, I guess, been in very loose touch with the writer, and it was called Out Party. And I was like, that sounds like a gay script. I'll read that tonight. And so went to the top of my reading list. And so I read it and I was like, wait, this is really good. I was laughing out loud. I teared up at the end. I was like, the writer is not gay. But even after reading it the first time, I was like, I think the writer might be gay because he really got it to something. I was like, I don't know if he's met another gay person before, but I think there's a chance that he's gay, and turned out that he's not. But so when I reached back out to him a year later, we kind of connected on it, and he kind of gave his reasoning for kind of wanting to write the story, and there was just so much there that that really translated to the kind of coming out and gay experience. And he kind of just nailed that in certain ways. And we did, once I had met the director as well through a friend, and he really responded to the script. And so we then did a lot of development on it because it definitely needed some tweaking and kind of, with a comedy like this, especially when most of the characters are actually straight, it's there's a lot of jokes and making fun of things, but at the same time, it's very important to make sure that's done correctly and, never saying anything is bad or anything like that. So we definitely needed to tweak the script a lot and before getting it ready to go out. But it was a great experience working with the director and the writer to kind of get it in a great place. And that's when we were able to send it to Lauren. to come on, because I was still an assistant and Lauren had produced a movie already. So we sent it to her and I was just kind of like attached to produce, which I kind of like followed that through and ultimately left my job in order to be on set and be a full producer on the film. So definitely very meaningful script to me and all that as well. I think I don't know if that answered the question, but
yeah, awesome.
Lauren.
Yeah, so you get this email or script, or however you guys do that behind the scenes, and you get this script in your hands from Jed saying, okay, hey, check this out. What was your first reaction when you first got this?
It's interesting because it wasn't like my old producing partner, who's the other producer on the movie, Lauren, her name is also Lauren. We're like two young women and it's, a very like male centric project. And we found the humor. We were like, okay, this is a little outside of our box. Like the first feature we had produced was about like a female who had been like dealt with sexual abuse. And it was just like reading it felt like that's the story we want to tell. But I think we both were so in love with Andy, the director, and just thought he was really, really special. And we were excited for the idea of certainly for her and for me, telling this coming out story in like a very different way of just like, accessing the community in this way that felt like very broad, really accessible, like a movie that like a grandmother could watch that had never seen like a movie with queer subjects at like the forefront. That was really exciting and felt very new, especially because my background was in festivals. I hadn't seen a movie like this out in the world. That was positive, that was uplifting, that wasn't like narrow, and that felt really like a great representation and just like a buddy comedy with a really phenomenal twist and a really special gay character who doesn't suffer or lose everyone in life.
It's very important that it was a comedy.
Yeah, and this style of comedy just felt really fun and dynamic and complex and also felt like something quite timeless, which still it is. I watch the movie frequently. I've seen it like many times. And I found it just terribly funny. And I love the characters. And it was such a joy to work with that cast. We're still buddies with it. We're in touch with people. And it was a really special project for us. So I think it was a combination of so many things. Hopefully that answers.
Yeah.
One other funny comment from the writer when asked what inspired him to write it is his answer is always that I think he had just seen like Superbad, and he was like he loves all those like Judd Apatow movies, and he was like, after Superbad, like these two best friends who are essentially like in a relationship, he's like, the logical next step is to have like a gay movie that is actually a gay movie with that similar type of humor. So it was, and again, as Lauren said, that it was the fact that it was a buddy comedy. And for me reading it, I loved that it was a gay guy coming out to straight like males. That was something that me and I was in a fraternity. I have two older brothers. Nobody was necessarily surprised when I came out, but like, it was something that I, identified with, and most of my gay friends also identified with. It wasn't like we all were only coming out to, our straight female friends, we were coming out to them too. But so that was something that we hadn't seen. And again, as Lauren said, like only a little bit of suffering in the movie, and generally a happy and comedic story, which was really important. That it was not, not making another gay tragedy, which are very important films as well. But there was space for this.
Yeah, and I think I seeing the movie is kind of like it's kind of a yo-yo of emotions. It kind of takes you through the sweet moments, and then moments where you laugh out loud, and then moments where you're like upset, and then you come back to being sad again, and then the ending was this phenomenal. But
it still leaves you. We were talking about it. It still leaves you with like, okay, what happens next?
But we'll get to that.
But it is for me personally, right? And I've always shared this. It really resonated with me in so many different levels, in so many different ways, because I was married for 20 years in a heterosexual relationship with 3 children. And at 38, almost 40 years old, coming out, right, as a gay man, there was moments there where I cried, you know, because I felt what
he was feeling.
What he was, you know, I went back and I remember those moments that I went through. And when here we are, you know, dealing with people coming out to us and saying, I'm struggling with this situation, I don't know how to do, we can definitely relate, and then put it into this motion picture that is so great and so funny. You know, it's definitely,
it's amazing.
It's really great.
Is. So Lauren mentioned about the characters, and that's kind of our next question. Is like, how did these characters come to life?
I mean, Lauren, were you going to talk about like the casting of it in terms of? I mean, it's so funny going from the page, and you're reading them, and you have a sense of, you know, who they're supposed to be, and then and a little bit of like behind the scenes is kind of like when you start casting, especially for a movie, this is a, you know, pretty low budget, you need to be able to sell it afterwards. So you need to be able to get actors who hopefully people have seen before. So we actually cast Cord Overstreet first, and he was kind of, you know, obviously one of the lead 4, but it wasn't like he was even one of the lead 2, but he was, you know, we both watched Glee and loved him on that. And when actually, I don't think I was at the meeting that he was, where you guys met him, Lauren, but he was obviously he was great, and he was great for the role. But that was kind of the first piece of the puzzle.
I think
and then John Gabris.
And then it was John Gabris, and they're kind of like a married couple. Like, we viewed the 4 of them as like Adam and Chris were like a couple, and then
Ortu
and Nick were like a couple, and then they had their whole friend group obviously together, but they kind of played off as like these 2 duos. And so then we hired John Gabris, who is truly like one of the funniest people. Number one, like in life, like he's the funniest guy in the room. He's very hard to keep up with, but he's wildly funny. He performs a lot live as a comedian, and with like UCB, Upright Citizens Brigade. And so the 2 of them were brought on together, and it was really important to have the dynamic between the 4 of them that felt like they had been friends for so many years, and they each brought a bit of a different style of comedy. Actually, Cord is really talented with physical comedy. Like, his facial reactions are really, really wonderful. And Gabris always has like the zingers and can always have great delivery of, you know, different lines. And
if you watch the film multiple times, Cord does so much in the background that you don't necessarily see the first time, that it's like, oh, he's the funniest one on screen.
You're like, oh my God, he's just winning it with like these facial reactions. And then Parker Young came on board, who's Chris, who's just an incredible actor. Actually, I was just watching A Million Little Things. I think that's what that TV show is called. I watched every week. But he's on it this season. And he's just such a grounded, talented actor. Like, he's so capable with drama and with comedy. He obviously looks like a complete movie star, and is also just like the nicest, he's just such a sweet, great guy. And so actually the last person we hired of the group was Evan Todd, who's our lead. So it was interesting bringing him on board, and he, I believe, was the only out of the 4 that we actually auditioned. And he was hired in New York. He had just finished at Juilliard. Obviously very talented guy. Jed and I had seen him he was off Broadway in Heathers, the musical, which was wonderful, and he was great in it. And our casting directors had brought him in, and I remember Jed and I passed a note to each other during his audition, and I wrote down, he's Adam, and Jed put like a check mark beside it.
We saw like 40
Yeah.
40 people in 2 days, because we were 2 weeks away from beginning shooting, because you just kind of have to pick a date and maybe it moves a week or two, but you figure it out. And so
Yeah.
we had amazing casting directors in New York City because we shot the film in Albany. So we went into the city, obviously, with the other producer and director. And yeah, Evan was great. And it was interesting because we kind of, in a way, I mean, you're not really allowed to, or nor is it appropriate to necessarily ask if an actor's gay in the room. And we weren't expecting necessarily to cast like a gay actor because you don't ever really know. And also we weren't sure. So after I was like, there's a chance he is. My gaydar was on a little bit. He knows how to flash a smile. But afterwards, Lauren Googling him after he accepted the offer, and there was something online while he was at Juilliard that he was involved in a group, I think.
Like the Gay Straight Alliance.
Yeah, the Gay Straight Alliance. And she was like, oh my God, like Evan's gay. And we were all like, oh my God, like, thank God, that's amazing. And I was definitely relieved because the director is straight. And so I was, up until that point, I was like the like gay man on set and kind of like creatively, so I was like, okay, there's going to be a lot less, explaining to do, like motivation wise, to the director and then to the actor, so it made everything, and obviously his acting and performance is so great, and he fit the role and kind of got it so well that we were just like, ultimately, I mean, we cast him, but we were extremely lucky to kind of get that connection with our casting directors and have it work out. And yeah, he's been so supportive of the film as well, which has been amazing.
That's awesome.
From it too. So
all right, so let's get into a little bit of the movie itself, right? So there's a couple scenes there that I want to kind of touch up on, which are very interesting. And these are, when I'm looking at the movie, right, and I'm seeing it from a perspective of a person that can relate to the movie, but also what are the things that I kind of took on that can relate to me or anyone who has gone through that, or any gay person out there. So the first thing that I wanted to kind of touch up on was a coming out scene, which is it's so funny at the beginning, because when he's talking and he's saying, I'm gay, and he's talking to no one but his picture frame or whatnot, it's and then someone knocks on the door. But when we talk about the emphasis on the difficulty of a 24-year-old, right, which nowadays, as being in the community, is so accepting in most cases, that for a 20-year-old kind of gay person is very easy, right? However, we have a 24-year-old man who is struggling coming out, and I take that to the context of how difficult it was for him in the movie, right? And then also talking about a person, for example, such as myself, or someone who has a little bit more of, is over 40 per se, and how difficult that also is for them.
So what were your personal feelings, talking about the plot being a gay man coming out to his best friends? What were your personal feelings in watching all this kind of play literally before you guys as the movie was coming along?
I mean, I guess for me, I mean, it's like there are so many stages of it, because it was from originally kind of reading the script and then then as you're filming and kind of watching that, and then there's the finished product of it, and kind of what does it come across. And it's funny because as it came out, there was some responses of like, oh, it's not difficult anymore, and I get a little defensive to that, because I'm like, it's kind of always difficult, because it's treated as just a very lonely process. People, obviously there are some parents, especially now, that might handle this differently, but a lot of people just like wait for the gay person to let them know. And it's like, that's a lot of pressure. We're told from our parents how to do every single other thing, or from society and our peers and friends, yet we're not told how or when to do that, or when it's appropriate. So watching somebody struggle, I mean, that could be a 16-year-old now, that could be a 66-year-old at any point, you know, that's always going to be relevant as long as somebody isn't helping them in their life go through that process. And so for Adam to be, you know he's lucky enough in the movie to know that he's loved by these people, but that doesn't make it easier because it's not necessarily in his personality to be that vulnerable. And so the struggle obviously was real. And then, you know, so it's obviously easier to do it after a night of binge drinking. So
I like that you mentioned, because, you know, let's just talk from the context of our community. You know, they think that is easy. You know, some people says, oh, I've been gay all my life. You know, I was born this way, I've been gay all my life. And sometimes within our community, we may discriminate against those who, like Adam, was having an issue and a difficulty at 24 years old trying to come out. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because regardless of the age, right, people are still struggling in coming out. People are still struggling in being, you know, identifying themselves as a gay person, or as a, you know, whatever the gender they may, or a sexual orientation they want to go with. So it is important that we raise this voice of, you know, as a community, we need to be also mindful of that just because, you know, and I always tell all this to my client, you know, your struggles are not the same struggles as other people's struggles. Yeah. You know, your crisis is not my crisis. So we're all different. So I'm glad you touched up on that. And
the struggle, it doesn't always have to be a struggle with other people. Like in Adam's case, it wasn't a struggle with other people, but it's always a struggle within yourself to actually come out with the words and say, hey, I'm gay. So Lauren, what were your kind of feelings in all of this?
Well, I'm definitely an ally, but yeah, it's interesting because, you know, straight people or people that I don't identify in the LGBTQIA plus space don't have to come out. It's just because that's the norm, you know, like you're just assume that unless you have to come out otherwise, which is part of the issue, I think, is that it's like, well, this is presented as the norm, and if you're not the norm, you have to let everyone know. And it's like we all have our own versions of seeing out whatever that means in so many aspects of our life, you know. And I think it ends up feeling like a very universal story, because what you said was spot on. Like, I think the struggle is there more internally for Adam, because he does have such an accepting group around him. But like what Jed said is so true. Hearing like, well, coming out now is easy in 2020, you know, because of ABC. I'm like, that's a very somewhat like privileged point of view to a certain degree, because it also, like even the conversation we were having yesterday, Ray, depends on your community and your background and your family and your history, and so many different experiences when you have to kind of come out and tell the people you love that you're doing something differently than maybe their own hopes or dreams or whatever for you and for yourself. So I think it relates to people in a number of different ways. But I think, yeah, it's still a very important story. And until everyone has to kind of come out and tell the world who they are and how they identify, it's going to keep feeling like this somewhat marginalized thing, which is the upsetting part, because that's part of where the issue is.
Yeah.
I think, like, I never had to come out and say, I'm straight, I like men. Like, that's not, that's, you know,
I do too. It's interesting. We were talking about it yesterday over the phone, and, you know, coming from a Latino background where it's really an interesting topic, but also a religious aspect, which segues into my next question, which is interesting, right? We all have a Martha in our lives, whoever that may be. You know, I think every gay person has had a Martha in their life. And then my question, I was curious to know, why Martha? Was that like the character's name given by the writer, or did you guys purposely put Martha?
That was always the name. It was just Aunt Martha, and it was kind of like I guess she has a niece that she wants to set up with Adam, but other than that, she's always referred to as Aunt Martha, which is just kind of a joke within itself because it's a bit innocuous. But no, that was always the name. And, you know, I think she serves kind of as like a bit of a foil and an extreme version of a silly person, you know, to you know, be against gay people. And it was also important. I grew up Catholic as well, you know, to have the priest like just not really have an opinion and be, you know, he was present but without really siding one way or the other. So happy to be at the barbecue, it seemed. But so yeah, but she was always Aunt Martha.
I love that scene when he comes out to his parents in front of the priest and Martha. It's like, I think internally all of us want to grab that hot dog and shove it in our mouth and be like, yes, I am gay. You know, it's kind of like, why is it so difficult for you to understand? It's like, I am gay. So I think that scene was just, it was funny, but at the same time, it was like a slap in the face. It was like, yeah.
Frustration almost. It was, you know, going back into the, you know, because as we have dealt with our community here and our support groups, continuously, we have a lot of people that spirituality for them is so important. And often, us as in the community as gay people, we are seen as anti-spirituality, right? Whatever that may be for you. And that is not the case. It's not true. And it's so interesting because, of course, I go back to Martha in the Bible, right? And, you know, she's so preoccupied with like putting out this image of who she wants to portray in front of this man, Jesus, right? And, you know, it took me back to it just felt so proper for her to be Aunt Martha because she, you know, these are type of people that cannot see past what they only want to see, right? It's wrong, you shouldn't do it, versus seeing the humanity, the love, and the people for who they are. So I thought that was so interesting. So I love that Aunt Martha name.
Yeah. She's also just horribly funny. Brooke Dillman. She's got
I love her.
facial is just golden. Yeah.
They really are. So so we want to talk real quickly about, you know, just the peer support aspect, you know, or the peer pressure, you know, of Adam and how he feels initially, you know, like the first scenes of the movie where they're pressuring him to, you know, hook up with Martha's niece, and you know, he's like, well, she can keep making us muffins, and then they go to the bar, and he's kind of, okay, well, let's go dance, you know, and that kind of how uncomfortable he is about not being able to just say it, and tell him at that point, we're like, look, I'm gay. You know, so I think that really, when we talk about coming out and when we talked about the topic, you know, it's like, and I think Lauren, this plays to what you were saying earlier, we talked about all of us being under the queer umbrella, right? And when you go to the definition of queer is, you know, people who are misfits, people who don't fit the norm. And we should feel proud of that. We don't fit the norm. We are not the norm, and we don't care to be the norm. So it's like, we're here and we're queer, you know, and that's perfectly okay.
And talk about, there's the scene where he's coming out and the friends' reactions. You know, I loved how you guys actually put that together, you know, and his friends are like discussing amongst themselves, was like, he can't be gay. He eats steak every day, or he rebuilt the entire engine. I was like, oh my God. It's like, okay, you know, so I thought that was so cute, but it goes back to that stereotype of stereotypical people, how they define who a gay person is, right? And it's just so interesting, you know, to put it into the movie and for people to see that, hey, listen, a gay person is a normal person, right? So I don't know, did you guys had any reactions into that, or how is that how it actually played out, or what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, all those lines were a version or the exact words from the original script. And I think that was one of the reasons why we were all drawn to it, was because, you know, he was an auto mechanic. And, you know, when I actually came out like 23, 24, And it wasn't until that, and where I started really meeting other gay men, and I was like, oh, wait, we're in every population. Like, we're not just X, Y, and Z. And so that was really cool to be able to tell, the story with that as the lead. And so, yeah, so their reaction, and Adam wants things to just remain the same to an extent as well. And I think one of my favorite kind of parts of the plot is Chris is trying to force everything to stay the same. And it's kind of like, and I think it was Tracy or Rachel who kind of calls him out for it. And it's like, no, like things shouldn't be staying the same. Like your friendship can remain the same, but you should change how, allow him to change through this. Even if he doesn't realize how much he wants to. And so that was a great plot point and story point to us as well, is kind of like, yep, things can remain the same, but they also shouldn't fully remain the same, because it is a big deal. And
we actually have a comment that actually speaks to that. It says, love that Adam still remained just one of the guys. Being gay did not change who he is.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't move to New York City after he told them.
And became a fashion icon.
Yeah.
Goes to how, historically in the media and with film and TV, like gay people had been presented as like the side character, the gay best friend, like the one that was only like friends with females. So like we're going away from that, being like yeah, that isn't the only version of gay, because unfortunately I think a lot of the LGBTQ films that deal with the subject like don't end up reaching like as wide, like they don't go so mainstream that the demographic of watching them does go much wider. So I think for us that was super important, because like these stories shouldn't be marginalized. Like the more stories like this that the entire population can see, the better, because then we're breaking the stereotype of like, yeah, like not all gay men are twinks or love Pink or love musicals. I mean, like Jed loves Les Mis, but like, but I think that Les Mis joke in the movie is so funny for us. But I think like there's all types of versions of what that means, and so I think it's important to keep pushing the boundaries in film as a whole for wide audiences to show these characters that aren't what we've seen in just mass media before.
Definitely.
And it definitely is changing now, more certainly the last, like since Fourth Man Out came out, definitely the last like 5 to 7 years especially. But prior to that, I mean, so much of what so many marginalized groups have been presented as like just this one thing. And so it was interesting in the critique of the movie, like I think people, well, a lot of times like straight audiences or straight journalists were like, this is terribly homophobic. I'm like, actually, all the people that love this the most are the gay audiences who aren't calling it homophobic. Like you're almost jumping saying, no, it's homophobic because like ABC, because of more of like a PC culture. And we all found that super interesting. I know when we found like people that it really connected with, we found audiences loved it all over. And the critiques we would get from like, straight film critics, we were kind of like, okay, take it with a grain of salt. Like the movie's winning awards everywhere from audiences. And that, that's what's so important to us and to the livelihood of the film and films in general, to kind of jump to a assumption of what it is. I know Jed's like an eye roll of it, but yeah.
So this is the lightning round of the interview. Nick, how does he know so much about gay apps?
Nick is a really good friend, and he's did his research after Adam came out so that he could be there for him. Because it was too apparent that Adam wasn't doing his own research for himself. So I think some people have asked if Nick is secretly gay. There's some kind of like double entendres there, but I don't think that was the intent of the story. It was more just to play with that a little bit for the reality of it and the joke of it. But more so just to kind of give him a little bit more humor, rather than to insinuate anything necessarily.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it goes. Go ahead, Laura.
I was gonna say also leaning into like so many of these buddy comedies that don't have gay characters are super homoerotic, and so like it's compelling when it's like no, one of them is gay. So like that, kind of flip switch is interesting because we found that funny. Like so many of the films that are similar like have that style of humor, but no one's actually like gay in it. So
it's interesting. What I thought, and we were discussing was, first of all, I love the way you guys did that. What I said, the friendship setback between Adam and Chris and the sofa, that was like, oh my God, that was intense. But at the same time, it's great because it shows how sometimes friendships could be tested, right? Sometimes we have friends that are going to stay by us whenever we have to come out with, something like coming out of them or whatever. And sometimes they're not, and it's totally okay. But I love this, and to see.
And this is something that's usually presented in heterosexual scenes with best friends, where there's kind of this fine line or this confusion or this kind of scene where the heterosexual characters kind of, and to present it in a gay and straight friendship, it was like, wow, that's powerful, because it's like, okay, they did get upset for a little bit, but the fact that they were able to
work it out
and put their friendship above everything else, represents that straight man that loves their friends no matter.
And that 4th of July scene when he he gives him a pop kiss. I'm like, my gay came out there, but I was like, no, come on. But I thought that was great. That was like the, like the culmination of their friendship. It's like, hey, look, we're good. We can go on being who we are. So, but we're about to wrap it up. But I just wanted to, the interesting question of everything that we talked about a little bit. What about, can we expect a sequel to this movie, or?
I mean, expect would be too strong of a word. We love these characters, and we would love to make a sequel. We played around with different ideas, and we even thought about it as like a TV show. So there isn't anything planned for now, but that is never far from our minds. So I don't know, Lauren, if there's anything more to add, but that's, I mean, we want to see one as much as you do. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So we actually have an idea for you. We've been talking about we've been talking about a book, and we're gonna call it "We the Gays: Memoirs of the Uncut," where we're gonna collect all these stories of Latino gay men coming out. So we have to talk about that, definitely.
I think that sounds like a great book.
Right?
Yeah.
So first of all, from a perspective of a gay organization serving the gay community, we want to thank you for putting something like this out there, where not only we can identify with, but where the heterosexual community as a whole can see the real struggles that we go through, right? So we really, really thank you. I really hope that, please, something works out and we can see maybe a sequel, maybe a series, something following this.
But speaking to that, okay, so what can we expect from Jed and Lauren in the near future that we need to look out for?
Jed, you want to answer?
We're working on several kind of bigger budget type movies that vary. One's like a dramatic thriller, one's a civil rights era story. But there's a fun TV project that we're developing that's actually a friend of mine who's kind of a drag queen, but not in the traditional sense. He doesn't perform at bars. So we're developing a story inspired by his life. That'll be a series because he's kind of like an executive consultant, went to Wharton Business School during the day and then has like this drag life as well in New York City. So we're developing that. So we're hoping that we're still at like the script stage and all of that. So, but hopefully that can get some traction. And so we'll be telling more varied gay stories in the near future.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
So again, thank you. We are humbled that you guys did this for Pride Support Services. We will forever be appreciative. I'm actually planning on my son. I was married as well. I have a 6-year-old boy. Cesar, I love you. I'm planning to go see him after this whole COVID-19 situation subsides. So
he lives in LA.
Yeah, my son lives in LA.
Okay.
So I'm going out to visit him after this whole COVID-19. So I was telling Ray maybe we could go for dinner sometime while we're there.
Yeah, definitely reach out while you're whenever you get to make it out here. And thank you so much for having us. It's an honor for us to kind of be involved in these things because we support groups like yours, of course, and obviously love the movie and the impact it has on people. It kind of inspires us to keep working every day as well. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
I said I second what Jed said. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be talking more through email hopefully, and we look forward to seeing what you guys come up with in the next few months or years. We'll be looking out for it, and hopefully we'll have you back for the next one.
Okay.
Awesome. That sounds great.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Have a good one.